Welcome to the Candidate Forum for Warrenville Mayor, sponsored by the League of Women Voters. My name is Barb Lymans, a member of the League of Women Voters of Wheaton, and your moderator for this evening. I live in West Chicago, so I will not be voting for any of the candidates participating in the forum this evening. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that neither supports nor opposes candidates or parties for any office. The League's purpose is to promote civic responsibility through the informed and active participation of citizens in government and civil civic discourse. Providing forums is a major mission of the League of Women Voters, so citizens can become better informed about the issues facing their community and to become better acquainted with the candidates running for office. The format tonight is a candidate forum and not a debate. Candidates are expected to accurately represent the facts, and their responses reflect their own views and opinions. The candidates have agreed to abide by the rules set forth prior to this forum. All candidates attending tonight have signed and returned the ground rules by the deadline established in the invitation. These rules specify the format, time limits, broadcasting of the forum, and other rules related to the conduct of this forum. The candidates will begin in alphabetical order with their 1-minute opening statement. They will then alternate the order in which they answer questions for 1 minute. And after the question portion of the forum, each candidate will give a 1-minute closing statement. Members of the League will be acting as timers, and they're located at the rear of the room. I will enforce the time limits. Should a candidate exceed the time limit, I will ask them to finish their sentence and move on to the next candidate. We have received a multitude of questions from the community in advance of tonight's forum. To ensure that questions represent a balance of topics, a panel of experienced members of the League of Women Voters have reviewed the questions submitted for appropriateness, applicable to all candidates, and to avoid duplication. We will do our best to read each question asked within the time frame allotted for tonight's forum. We are grateful to those in the community who take the time to learn more about the candidates before casting their vote by attending or watching candidate forums. For those in attendance this evening, we ask that you listen attentively, turn off your phones and electronic devices, and avoid commenting or disrupting others during the forum, and refrain from applause until the end. Finally, I want to say how appreciative we are of the candidates who not only are willing to serve in office, but who agreed to be here tonight and share their ideas and goals. So let us get started to hear from the candidates for Mayor of Warrenville, Michael Hoffman and Andrew Johnson. Candidate Hoffman, you have 1 minute for your opening statement.
Hello, my name is Michael Hoffman. I'm running for mayor. I was previously a Ward 3 alderman. I ran my own business for 25 years. What got me involved in politics is a flooding issue, and you kind of get involved in all the meetings and that, and you see a lot of things going wrong. Of the 50 states in Illinois, Illinois is one of the most expensive when it comes to property taxes. The city of Warrenville needs to address this issue because the past and present leadership has ignored it. My 5-star plan addresses this. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, your 1-minute opening statement.
Good evening, and thanks to the League for sponsoring this event and to all of you for coming out tonight. I'm running for mayor because I love this town. I was born and raised a few hundred yards from where we sit in a home that had my father's TV business on the front and the DuPage River in the back. I've been an active Warrenville resident all my life, as were my parents. My father, Cliff, was Warrenville's fire chief for many, many years, and Johnson School in Summer Lakes is named in his honor. So service is in my blood. I served 6 years on the park board, 16 years on the District 200 school board, 10 of those as the board president when we were moving Hubbell Middle School, leading the efforts to move Hubbell Middle School from Wheaton to Warrenville. My goals are simple: to keep Warrenville a safe and welcoming city, to maintain its fiscal responsibility, bring in high-quality commercial development, and to represent us with integrity, positivity, and respect. I'm an independent candidate, and I'll be accountable solely to the residents of Warrenville. I promise to provide the leadership we deserve, to build on the success of the past, and to make Warrenville an even better place to live, work, and play than it is today.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, The first question will begin with you. What is the most important issue facing the city, and how would you address it?
The most important issue, I believe, is good quality commercial development and bringing it to the city. We've had an influx of a great deal of residential development the last number of years. We need to have the businesses developed and supported in town to bring all those new people, 2,000 plus people, into the businesses in Warrenville. So commercial development down here at Warrenville and Batavia Roads, good quality that matches the surrounding and fits with the character of Warrenville. Good commercial development along Butterfield Road, same there, that fits with the Warrenville by design ideas that have been put together by everybody here, by residents who pulled that all together. And so that commercial development and good quality commercial development, I think, is the key and something I'll focus a great deal of my attention on.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman, what is the most important issue facing the city, and how would you address it?
It's the taxes. And there again, my 5-star plan addresses it as far as our property taxes are way too high. I believe that's what's keeping the commercial development out of this town. Is we get developers that come in our town because they buy the property cheap. They develop, they build homes and apartments, they rent them out or sell them, and they don't have to pay the taxes. The high-quality companies that we would like to get in, they crunch the numbers and the taxes are too high. Our taxes are higher than Naperville's. And when they're crunching the numbers, they're thinking, oh, I could save $100,000 here. This could be my bonus. And they just don't come to Warrenville.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman, to kind of follow up on this thread of attracting business, what are your thoughts about how we could attract quality businesses to the town? Candidate Hoffman.
There again, the taxes are high in this town. That it needs to be addressed. I've run for mayor before, and often I had samplers in the little trib of what the prices on houses were. As far as the taxes goes, there was a house on Galusha that was, I believe, it was about $1.4 million, and I always try to keep it with the houses that were in District 200 because that's kind of the biggie right there. So it's all apples to apples. And in Wheaton they had one and it was $1.3 million. The guy in Warrenville here was paying $8,500 more, and for $100,000 difference in value. At one time, I figured what the taxes were. And this kind of changes is Warrenville, and when I say Warrenville, I'm not saying the city of Warrenville. When you pay your taxes, you pay the whole thing. And our taxes combined was, sorry.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson?
So the question was attracting quality businesses, how to
Yes.
attract them? Well, some of it is simply calling on them, calling on developers, calling on businesses, and having the infrastructure in place for them to want to come to. As you heard a number of times tonight from the other candidate forum portions, we have fantastic staff working for the city of Warrenville. We have economic development people there who their job is simply to find those commercial developers who may want to come into Warrenville and make the phone calls and go visit them. And I will be doing that with them. There are companies that want to locate here right now. It's just a matter of getting the infrastructure put in place. That's where the TIF districts come in and the assistance that can be afforded to some of those developers to help them, to encourage them to come here. Because our taxes are actually quite reasonable when you compare them apples to apples across the area.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, how will you or the mayor and the council be more open and transparent in the initial stages of vetting new development opportunities? How will you be more open and transparent in the initial stages of vetting new development opportunities for the community?
I guess the question is more open. I don't know how more open, what openness would be right now, but anything and everything that you want to see, you should be able to see. If a resident puts in a request for information, rather than making him jump through all sorts of hoops, if anything was given to a council member, it should be given to that resident. Shouldn't have to go through all sorts of FOIA requests and things like that. I've always had a problem with that track that you make people fill out forms to get forms that you've got at your fingertips. So pretty much anything that can be provided should be provided. Sunlight's the greatest disinfectant. We can all benefit from having all the information out there for the residents to see, so they all feel very comfortable that whatever we bring to the corner down here is a good quality development and is going to be good for the entire community.
Candidate Hoffman, your thoughts?
Excuse me?
How can you be more open and transparent in the initial stages of vetting new development opportunities for Warrenville?
Well, there's a lot of different ways. The city needs to do a better job of getting the information out. One particular instance comes up that just happened just 2 weeks ago. I had noticed there was a piece of property bought on Route 59 back about 8 years ago, and I've been keeping an eye on that. There was never a for sale sign on it or anything, and it came up. I believe it must have came up on a Thursday, and I read it on Friday. And it came up for a vote on the next following Tuesday, and they waived the second reading. And this was over the piece of property sold for $1.4 million. I think there should be a little bit more time for the citizens to be heard on areas like that. I would also like to get a city newspaper back, a free city newspaper that we had. And, I'm not in this for a wage or for benefits or anything like that. And I totally plan on using part of my salary in order to fund getting a private newspaper, a free private newspaper as we used to have. So you have the section for citizens' comment and things like that. And I think us losing that was a terrible thing for the city. And hopefully we could get it be called the Warrenville Digest,
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman, what is your perspective on the high-density developments within Warrenville and their impact on our resources?
I'm not against high-density development. I'm against irresponsible high-density development. Those apartments and those townhouses that were built up on 59 are just irresponsible. And, because they had put them in TIF districts. For one, that someday when we get our taxes reasonable again and competing with Naperville's, that would have been some great commercial property to lower our taxes. And instead now we have apartments and we have housing in there, townhouses. And the problem with the TIFs is what happens is it just should not have been put in a TIF. It's just irresponsible development. And if I had more time, I could go a little bit farther.
Candidate Johnson, what is your perspective on the high-density developments within Warrenville and their impact on the resources?
Yeah, they have their place. They are there where they are right now. They're not going to go away. You're not also probably not going to see much more like that because there's simply not the space to do it. So I think the time of that high density development kind of running through the paces is over. However, now the trick is there's hundreds of people in these high density units that we need to bring into the community and make sure they feel comfortable and welcomed and involved in the life of the community. Through the park district, through the fire district, through the city, and through all the different opportunities. So my perspective on it is I don't think there's going to be much going forward. It certainly has an impact on community services, but it certainly would have a lesser impact if we can get more of those people spending their money and their time in town.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, what is the appropriate development for the corner of Batavia Road and Warrenville Road? And how will the city recoup its investment there?
The appropriate Batavia and Warrenville Road. So right down here. This is where I grew up, where my father's television store was, and where once was a grocery store and a scuba shop. Surprisingly, people don't realize there was a scuba shop there once. The appropriate development is something akin to what you see on the placard that's up there as a concept for what can go there. And that is something with commercial development below and residential above, or some mix thereof. That still allows an opportunity to get back to the river and still complements hotels and Al's Pizza and Fontana's and keeps that character of the neighborhood in place. So something akin to what you see on that placard is what we should be pursuing. And a developer who has that mindset to keep something small and intimate, but nonetheless that adds to the quality of the community.
Candidate Hoffman, your thoughts?
I would like to see that be a land lease deal and get a developer interested in putting up a building there. There'd be a 25-year lease or a 50-year lease. Basically like the McDonald's on shopping malls and that, those are all outlots, and they're a land lease deal, and they make pretty good money on it. And eventually, the amount of money that's in there, eventually we get it paid back, and then it would just be money coming in to help lower the taxes for the property taxes for the people in town here.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman, what can and should the city of Warrenville do about possible flooding caused by the Faywell Dam?
Well, I filed some papers on a meeting of March 12th, 2024, and it was an engineering report, and it was a report that I'd made. It was all copies of information I actually pulled out of DuPage County Stormwater Management's office, and hopefully. The city needs to keep on it, but now they can't say that we didn't know, and when they flood us out, and if they do flood us out horrifically, which the way it's set up, they could very well, and everybody could sue them. We could start a class action lawsuit against them. That's what originally got me involved in politics, and I just seen that, and I thought, wow, this is completely wrong, and it needs to be fixed, and I'm kind of hoping what I did solved it, but you can't depend on what the county's going to do, So that's something that the city needs to always be proud of them. And
Thank you, Candidate Johnson. Your thoughts on what can and should be done? The city of Warrenville do about the possible flooding caused by the Faywell Dam?
Well, kudos to Mike and everybody who has kept an eye on it over the years. And it is something that the mayor's job to keep an eye on, because we have a river running through town. I mentioned I grew up just across the street here. We had the river in our backyard often. Fortunately, a great deal has been done by the county to mitigate a lot of the stormwater management. So knock on wood, we haven't had some of those catastrophic floods like we have in the past. But we live on a river, so we have to keep an eye on that. And that's got to be something that's always in the mayor's mind, and it's always in the public works director's mind, and it's always in the city's mind to make sure we are doing what we can to keep an eye on whatever's going on with the Faywell Dam.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, what is your opinion on the Mack Road bike path?
I think it should be on the south side of the road. I'm sorry, you just put the sign up at the wrong time. I think it should be on the south side of the road for a variety of reasons. And I've educated myself a lot, and I've met with some of the folks and meeting with some of the neighbors up there. I do not want to be the first mayor to condemn property in the city of Warrenville, and I don't think it needs to happen. Unfortunately, at the same time, the city council has voted unanimously to pursue the project on the north side of Mack Road. So I'm coming a little bit late to it, granted. I'm educating myself as much as I possibly can, but I am not a fan of where they're proposing to have it on the north side. So I would want to convince me why, if it came to me, if I had to make the cast a vote and be the deciding vote, why I should approve that. So that's just where I stand.
Candidate Hoffman, what is your opinion on the Mack Road bike path?
I'm completely against any land condemnation for non-essential use. It should be on the Forest Preserve property. The Forest Preserve has bike paths all throughout it. There's no reason why it shouldn't be over on the other side. And to disrupt people's lives like that, I think, is a crime in itself. if there's anything I could do to stop it or reverse it, I would.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. We have a question about, could you please comment on the recent large price increases for city water and sewer bills?
Okay, a lot of that is because of the water bills and that, I believe to do with the water tower going up over there. The sewer bill is because because with the extra housing and the extra population that's been brought into town, they had to increase the amount of water that gets sent to Naperville is over their limit. So they end up having to build a larger sewer treatment plant or add on to it, whatever they're doing down there, for the to handle the amount of the extra sewage we're sending them, and that's the portion that we have to pay for the extra facilities.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, your thoughts?
Yeah, the sewer, as you know, we have no sewage treatment plant in Warrenville, so it goes to Naperville. So when the plan came up to replace a great deal of the infrastructure for that plant, we all have to pay for it. And that's what accounted for and accounts for the increases in our sewer bills. And the water, fortunately, we control our own water here. Our rates, depending on apples to apples comparisons with neighboring communities, is fairly in line with them. What I've seen in a number of places in people's comments is the city has been very good at jumping on people's complaints and saying my rates went through the roof and figuring out what happened. They also had a new billing software that came in too that didn't make anybody's day when that came into place as well. So, but depending on how you look at the apples to apples rate structure, it's fairly comparable. And to the city's credit also, and the city staff, they are going through a big rate analysis this coming year that will be looking at that just to make sure those are right. And that's the way it should be. You do make data-driven decisions. You got to take in the data from everybody. So,
thank you. Candidate Johnson, do you see any desire or opportunity to switch from local wells to Lake Michigan water?
Not in my lifetime, no. So simple answers are always good, no. We have it under our control. It's kind of like the question about fire district versus a city fire department. You know, you can focus on your water. You can be focused on your fire district. And we have it in our disposal here at our control. And we have we have great water here in Warrenville.
Candidate Hoffman.
I can't imagine ever bringing in Chicago water. You know, one of the reasons why their water rates are so high as far as Naperville or Winfield is because they have Chicago water and their water rates are much higher than ours. Why ours are so high, quite frankly, I don't have a whole lot of ideas other than things have just built up. Probably things have been paid for and added on that probably should have been not done. I gotta believe it's probably with the development in that, you know, because we should have cheap water. We're pumping it out of the ground. That'd be certainly one of the priorities I'd like to look into and see about getting it cheap, you know, lowered, water prices lowered, because city of Chicago water is not a deal. So that's very high. If you talk to the people out in Winfield, the amount of water bills they're getting, a friend of mine gets a $200 water bill. It's only him and his wife that live there. So,
thank you. Candidate Hoffman, should Warrenville reimpose the 1% sales tax on food and drugs?
you know, I would like to drop the sales tax. I would like to get our tax so it was equal to Naperville's or lower, because I believe that could be one of the reasons why we have a lot of empty shops in town, because they're under a handicap right off the bat with a higher property tax or a higher sales tax than Naperville, and we need to get that. We need to get that down to at least what Naperville's is or lower.
Candidate Johnson.
No. Simple answer, no. We should not reimpose that. But should always look at all of the taxes and all of the expenses and all of the budget items every single year with a fine-tooth comb, just as anybody here in the room would.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, what infrastructure projects, roads, utilities, transit, etc., do you believe need immediate attention in Warrenville?
Hold on a second. Nothing dramatically at this moment, just ongoing maintenance of roads and streets that are currently in town, ongoing maintenance of the water system that's currently in town, and then if you're talking about infrastructure, some new infrastructure that's being planned for along Route 59 is a pathway to provide on the west side of Route 59 from Butterfield Road up to Batavia Road. So that's an infrastructure project that's on the books too. But just the ongoing maintenance, the ongoing attention to everything that we've come to expect here in town, that's the ongoing infrastructure. But there's no one big project other than the commercial development that needs to happen within our TIF districts.
Candidate Hoffman?
I think we're probably pretty good. There's a few streets that need a little bit of maintenance in that, but they'll be all taken care of, and they're a good time with that CMRP that the city has. It's a very good program. And I think what we need to do is kind of put the brakes on things, get our property taxes down so they're reasonable or comparable with Naperville's or lower, and then see what we could do after that. But I wouldn't be, as far as any big infrastructure projects, as far as paths or anything like that, I'd have a hard time spending money on that until we get our taxes lower.
Thank you. We do have a question here. Someone asked, should Warrenville become a friendly golf cart community?
Who gets that?
Candidate Hoffman.
You know, I really don't have any problem with that, but I think what I would do is I would have a referendum, and I'd like to hear from the people. Because I have a home down in Florida. I've had it there 27 years, and I've seen it go from no golf carts to golf carts. And the thing is the people driving the golf carts sometimes feel that they have the right of the way on the road and that, and it gets very annoying after a while. So I'd really like to hear the people, what they say, you know, because you get a select group that they really want that, and they're very outspoken about it, and you think the whole world wants that. And I think if the people had it, they'd be very surprised on how annoying it actually is.
Candidate Johnson?
Put on my safety professional hat, because that's what I did for 30-some years as a safety professional, doing defensive driver training and things like that. And I've almost hit a couple of them in town. That being said, I'm not opposed to them, but they need to follow the rules. They can be licensed. They have to have a VIN number. They have to have seatbelts. They have to be following the same rules the rest of us are following. So I don't know what necessarily a golf cart friendly community would look like, other than a closed community in Florida maybe or someplace else. But I can't. I imagine it's something that's probably going to fade away in the next few years. I can't see it becoming a large issue that we need to address, beyond the fact that if you got one now, follow the rules and make sure you're highly visible so we can see you, because that's the hardest part.
Thank you. We have a couple questions about transparency and openness. So the first of the series of questions is, does the inclusion of most items on a consent agenda limit citizen awareness of actions before the city council? And we'll start with you, Candidate Johnson.
I suppose you could see it that way. Yeah, I mean, the consent agenda is where they bundle a lot of things that have been taken care of in other committees or administratively done, and they're all there. And if you dig into them, you can see all the guts behind the scenes. So it's to make for efficient meetings. It doesn't, and so oftentimes you don't have a lot of discussion about virtually anything on a consent agenda unless it's pulled off. So that's the reason it's put there. The information is all there behind the scenes, but it's not as easily found as you might think, or as easily understood. So I think to your question, you could pull more things off a consent agenda, but then you just create more meeting time. I don't know how to address it from a transparency standpoint, because the information's there, the data's all there, anybody can get it. It's as transparent as it could be right now. What we could also do a better job of, perhaps, is preparing into the future and saying at the bottom of agenda, which is something we did when I was on the school board, said upcoming items. So then people could know that maybe, the levy will be at the next meeting, or the levy will be at the third meeting out. So things like that could be done to help encourage people to see things ahead of time, as opposed to the day they begin to check an agenda. So more transparency, the better.
Candidate Hoffman? Does the inclusion of most items on a consent agenda limit citizen awareness of actions before the City Council?
Well, as far as, pretty much the Robert's rules is what lays out meetings and that, and they're not written in stone. They're basically rules just to make meetings more expedient. One thing I would like to see the city change is not waive a second reading, because what happened last week was just a terrible thing, and it just cut the people from being able to be outspoken about something. You know what I mean? And too many things get passed by too quick, and I think we need to slow down the government so people have a little better voice in it. People need to get out. You people here are interested. Look at how many people are in town here, and right I would consider this a lot of people at a meeting, But in reality, you look at all the people. You're a very small percentage here. We need to get more people involved in government, and I think by slowing down the meetings and make it a little bit easier for people to react to things would be much better.
Candidate Hoffman, you've kind of delved into the next question, but maybe both of you can go into more detail. What will you do to include the citizens of Warrenville in more of the decision-making process before the council in regards to development and other areas?
One thing is I'd like to see them get more information out so they could get involved. When you start waiving second readings and things like that, it doesn't give enough people time to react. And then again, that's one of the reasons why I'd like to get a city newspaper so they can kind of report on this stuff and get it out to everybody on a monthly basis. It'd be depending on how it's set up. It was a monthly paper or a weekly paper. It'd be really nice if it was a weekly paper, but how the finances would work out on that, I don't know. But it definitely, we have to work on people getting more involved in their government. This is your government. It's not my government. It's your government. It's all of our government. You know what I mean? And I'm up here because I've seen things go on that, behind closed doors and that just shouldn't have happened. And people need to get involved. They need to know. I think if people heard more what was going on, they would get out and start doing some yelling, quite frankly. And, I think a free newspaper in Warrenville and whatever, no second readings, and, go back to paper. If you want to pick up, that's one thing as far as at the city council meetings, they used to have the summary package of the agenda and had a lot more information in it now. Now it just has the agenda and that's pretty much it, You got to remember, paper is renewable and it's recyclable and it puts people to work. So, a little bit of paper that's being saved, it's reducing the amount of people that can read things and get involved.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, your thoughts?
Getting people involved? What was the...
What will you do to include the citizens of Warrenville in more of the decision-making process in regards to development and other issues?
Yeah, as the mayor, you have an ability to communicate via all the different sources that the city has at its disposal, the website and that. And so we try to push a lot of information out, but we're all overwhelmed. And we would love to have a newspaper, and we'd love to have different avenues for getting information. So one of the things that I've toyed around with is taking, don't scream at me, city council members who are here, but as a school board president, we moved our school board meetings around. Why couldn't we take a few city council meetings to some neighborhoods in town, just to try to engage people a little bit where they are? The other thing is simply getting aldermen and the mayor to go to spots within their neighborhoods that are part of their communities, the new apartments particularly, and having open houses and just trying to get people involved to get them more attuned to where they can get the information, because it's all there. It's just not as in your face as it used to be when we had the Warrenville Digest, which was a fantastic tool at the time.
Thank you. Well, to get a little bit more specific, someone has asked, will you allow the city's newsletter to have citizen input, for instance?
I don't know how much more space you want to put it. Are you asking me? I'm sorry.
Yes, Candidate Johnson.
Sorry. I don't know how much more space they want to put in it, because then you get complaints that it's too big, or it's too small, or it's in paper, or it's not in paper, or I want it only electronically. So I'm open to that. Or I'm open to it being on the sideline, certainly on the website. You could, why not? I mean, it's all out there, and it's easier to address it quickly or try to get on it. I guarantee you, though, if you post something and I'm the mayor and it's a contrary or negative of some type, I'm going to call you. I'm going to find you, and I'm going to invite you to come and have a cup of coffee or meet someplace to talk about it and find out what we're missing, what you heard different than what perhaps I acted on. So beware, be notified.
Candidate Hoffman?
What I'd like to do as far as hometown happenings is, for one, is I believe it should be for city information. But what I'd like to see is I'd like to see them incorporate every month on what I want to say bills, but what things are coming up in the city and that, as far as what they're going to be voting on. I'd like to put in there also how the alderman had voted on it, because that's very important. So you're informed on, okay, well, this alderman's not voting on the way I think he should be voted on that particular item. Maybe we won't vote for him next time. That's all about being transparent. And knowing what's going on in our community, there's a lot of things that I think the town kind of misses the boat on now, and that's absolutely just a given that we should have in that paper, and instead of political things and that, it should be to the facts and that, and it should have an area in there on what's coming up on the agenda or what has been, and then how people, how aldermen have voted on it, and that, and even a statement by the mayor on how, because the mayor doesn't vote unless there's a tie. So I think the mayor should say how he felt on that particular item and how he would have voted if he was able to vote.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Time has elapsed, I'm afraid. Candidate Hoffman, we'll begin this question with you. Do you have any plans to lower taxes if elected? If so, what are they? And be specific. And to the timekeepers, I'd like to extend time to 2 minutes for this question. Okay.
What I would like to do right off the bat is reinstate the tax cap, and then as far as the home rule sales tax, I'd like to take some of that, maybe start with $300,000 and put that to try to help lower property taxes and that. I would drop the sales tax at least to match Naperville's, and then let the dust settle, and then see where we stand, and if we can go farther, go farther. But we got to start on some place.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Johnson, do you have any plans to lower taxes if elected? If so, what are they, and be specific?
Well, we share the same idea of sticking with the tax cap going forward, so that would be with the levy in the fall. Either one of us is elected, we will be handed a budget that has been developed by the current city council, because that happens next few weeks, goes into effect May 1st. So we would have an input into the budget coming around this time next year is when we would be able to actually do that. So the tax cap is one thing. And then again, looking at all of the community services that the city provides as we get into that process, and working with the council, because it's not just the mayor. The mayor can't wave a wand and make something happen. You got to have the input of the staff, you got to have the input of the council, and take all ideas on the table. So main primary thrust, though, is to stay within the tax cap.
Thank you. The next question will begin with you, Candidate Johnson. Would you share TIF funds with the other taxing bodies, such as the Park District and the Fire District? How would you mitigate the costs that these districts incur during the TIF?
The short answer is yes, to the extent reasonable and prudent given what the districts need. And that's what I saw when I was on the school board also. The school board obviously got impacted by development in town with kids, so you need money to educate kids. Similar with the fire district, they need equipment. They need to be able to take care of all the new apartments that come into town. So they would come with their proposals, and we'd have to talk about that. But I certainly support that. The intent of the TIF was to set money aside, that then there is the quote-unquote windfall when the TIF expires in 23 years. But in the interim, the underlying taxing districts are in a way penalized for the city having that ability to use that money for commercial and for development within its borders. So that's where you have conversations and you work together. As you heard in the other candidate forums earlier, we have a great cooperative work ethic here in Warrenville. Working together, we can find a solution to get to those points with the underlying taxing districts.
Thank you, Candidate Hoffman.
In a perfect world, they'd abolish the TIF. It simply just takes money out of your pocket, and I wouldn't have enough time to explain it all to you, but it's just not a good deal for the taxpayer. It's a good deal for developers, it's a good deal for government, it's not a good deal for the taxpayer. And I've gone to state TIF meetings on the statute, and they don't even want to hear any changes. And there's one of the changes right off the bat would be is as far as residential in a TIF. Residential, I've read the TIF statute. And when I was elected official, and it's just to put housing in a TIF zone, in a TIF district, is just completely irresponsible. It's okay per the TIF statute. It's just irresponsible. Housing is not economic development, and if they're TIFs just are not a good deal for the taxpayer. And I could go on forever on this, and just.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman, we have several questions regarding environment. So the first one is, Candidate Hoffman, can you please state your vision for an environmentally safe, secure, progressive Warrenville?
Well, for one, we got to stop the river from flooding us. It's just what they're doing to us with Faywell Dam. That's a lot of the reason why we're not getting development. The engineers wouldn't know what's going on, and that you don't see any development down here. They develop out there. They develop in Cantera. They don't develop down here. You think that piece of property would be a prime piece of property in that, It's in flood district, it's just, and it shouldn't be. The flood zone is, when I bought my property, the 50-year flood was 20 feet out of the river. Now the 10-year flood is up past the front of my houses, and it just, as far as cleaning up old gas stations and that, we should stick to people that own the gas station and use their funds, their grants, as far as government grants and insurance money to clean those up. I don't know if we have any more gas stations. I kind of worry about that one up on 59, as far as Speedway up there across from, up there on the corner of Batavia and 59. But no, we got to keep it a nice, healthy town. I plan on living here the rest of my life. Not that there's a whole lot left, but I'd like to leave it the town that I had when I was a kid. I'd like to leave that to the other kids.
Thank you, Candidate Johnson. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a tree hugger from way back. There's actually a photograph of me hugging a tree online somewhere that I planted at an Arbor Day celebration years ago. And I currently sit on the board of the trustees of the Morton Arboretum. So green is kind of in my veins, along with a feeling for service. So we've got a Natural Areas Commission here to work with. We've got volunteers in town, Warrenville and Bloom. We are a tree city. As mayor, I'll continue to promote that and to continue encouraging volunteers to get involved to to find out what can be done better from a more environmentally conscious standpoint within the city. There are some other groups kind of percolating here and there up around the community around this exact subject. So being out there listening and trying to stay curious in the future as far as what can be done. And staying on top of the flooding, as we've already talked about. We share that concern, having grown up on the river there as well. So just keeping an eye out on things and being a good mayor, being a good proponent, a good advocate, a good champion for the town.
Great. A member of the audience is asking this question. I am concerned about salt on our roads and in our water. Do you have a plan to reduce the use of salt and use it only if there is freezing precipitation? Candidate Johnson, we'll begin with you.
I don't. To answer the question, I don't have a plan for that because I don't know what the issue is. I would have to find more out. However, I was at a Conservation Foundation event the other day, and they have a certification program called Salt Smart or something like that, where they educate and they train public works departments to be smart about using salt or being whatever the treatment might be on their streets. And when I was sitting there, I wrote that down. So those are those things that pop in my head. I write them down. I bring them back. So if I were mayor, I'd be encouraging that or finding out more about what we can do to encourage them to be salt conscious or salt smart or whatever the certification is through the Conservation Foundation.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman?
Yeah, one of the things I've often wondered about, and is, the salt comes out in such big pellets. A lot of times you see it's pushed right off the side of the street right away. I've often wondered why they couldn't crush it down to a smaller size, so it would where you spread it would stay, and reduce the salt usage that way. But I imagine I have to get some engineers involved in that and see why they couldn't work. It seems like it's probably cheaper to mine than with the bigger granules. But I would personally think that if it was crushed smaller, it could be spread out thinner and used much more effectively and efficiently.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman, we've had several questions that revolve around drilling down on what is the one most important issue or policy facing the city and how would you address it? So what is the number one important issue or policy facing the city and how would you address it?
I think it's the taxes, and I think my five-star plan addresses that, at least at a beginning stage. We need to get our taxes lower so we can draw in businesses. We can fill up these empty shops in town certainly by lowering the sales tax, and that would certainly have to help if we can get them lower than Naperville's. There was a time before I ran, I always used to really like going door to door. My feet is kind of limited that, but I had talked to a woman, and she said, "Oh yeah, I go over to Target in Naperville," and it was all over. She bought something in Warrenville, in the Target in Warrenville, and she returned it into Target in Naperville. And she was from Summer Lakes there, so the drive wasn't much different for her. And now she does all her shopping in Naperville because she got less money back when she returned it to Naperville. And this woman said, "Well, the taxes are higher in Warrenville." And if there's a lot of people doing that, it's certainly a problem. And all those little things add up because over a period of time, it just snowballs. So I think right off the bat, our property tax or our sales tax should be similar to Naperville, and if we lower it even more, we got to give the business in town here an advantage. Advantage over other communities, and we're small enough, we should be able to control costs like that.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, what is the one most important issue or policy facing the city, and how would you address it?
Yeah, it's commercial development and bringing in good quality commercial development because everybody's seen all the residential that's come in, and they're tired of that. They don't want to see more high density residential. They want good commercial development to fill in these empty spaces. So working with the staff, working with the city council in total, because again, the mayor can't wave a wand and make these things happen. You got to work at it. You've got to look at all the different variables to it. You got to dive into the budget planning, dive into the taxes, dive into the comparatives of us versus Naperville versus Winfield, West Chicago, whatever, and find that sweet spot. And that isn't just me or Mike, it's all of us, and it's the city council working together with the mayor leading that in the right direction.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson, this will be our last question. And it is, what is your approach to working with fellow council members and city leadership to pass effective policies?
I'll go back to my past history. When I was the president of the school board, District 200, I was the only Wheaton resident, or Warrenville resident on that board, surrounded by representatives from Wheaton. And we got Hubble Middle School moved from downtown Wheaton to Warrenville. So I know how to work with people. I know how to work with people who have different backgrounds and diverse perspectives on things. I did it when I was the chairman of the board of the National Safety Council. I did it on the park board here, school district. So I've got a lot of experience in finding, getting to yes, and getting to the right answer, and getting to the positive, proactive way of doing things, and all the while pulling the different pieces together and the different disparate voices together to make that happen. Whether we agree on things all the time or not, that's fine. But you got to work to pull those voices together and bring them together in a room, get them together, and then sometimes agree to disagree, but to lead proactively and positively.
Thank you, Candidate Hoffman. You have 1 minute.
Could you repeat your question?
Sure. What is your approach to working with fellow council members and city leadership to pass effective policies?
Well, I think getting the information out to them. They're all good people. They're all trying to do the city right. I think if you get the facts and figures and all the different positions out to them, I certainly would believe that they would make the right decisions. But everybody needs the up to date and most pertinent information on the subject.
Thank you. Well, once again, I have proven to become a liar, as I was just handed 4 more questions that people would like to ask.
Bring it on.
I think they did this on purpose, but they're good questions. So if you have the time, and I'll ask them now. Candidate Hoffman, why did you decide to run?
Well, I've run 3 other times against an incumbent, and that's the reason why we need term limitations, because it's hard to dethrone an incumbent, and this is the first time I really feel I had a chance. So as far as I'm not running against an incumbent, and I've been so involved that I thought I'd toss my hat in the ring one more time.
Okay, thank you. Candidate Johnson, why did you decide to run?
Similarly, I've just been involved in the community all my life, and when I heard the current mayor, Dave Brummel, was retiring, I said, okay, this is my opportunity to do that. Toyed around with the idea for years and years, and now's the right time for it. So my professional, personal background, community background, I think it all fits to lead to be your next mayor.
Okay, next question. What do you want to accomplish within your first 90 days? What would you like to be known for by the end of your first term?
Who first?
You.
I'm first. First 90 days. Again, I don't think a mayor can do much in the first 90 days. Working with the council, just being out there and being around town and introducing myself as the mayor would be part of that first 90 days. So that's kind of what it is. But setting the tone that we're going to keep Warrenville moving forward, good fiscal responsibility, good listening, good environmental advocacy, all the stuff that we've kind of built on. So within the first 90 days, you'll know that that's going to be where I'm coming from. At the end of my term, first 4 years, or end of 4 years, good commercial development down here on the corner where I grew up, and a good start to commercial development along Butterfield Road. I'd love to see that happen the next 4 years, as well as a continued great relationship with the Park District, the Fire District, School District, the underlying districts here in town, as well as encouraging more volunteers across all the commissions we've got and all the different volunteer opportunities in town.
Thank you, Candidate Hoffman. What do you want to accomplish in your first 90 days? And what would you like to be known for by the end of your first term?
My first 90 days, first things I would do is properties that were commercially viable for commercial development is I would put signs up, make it available to realtors for land lease deals. The properties that are not viable for commercial development, what I'd like to do is I'd like to have them tilled up and used for community gardening purposes and that for people that live in the townhouses and apartments and that if they want to have a little garden, or people with small yards, or in some of the subdivisions that only got 2 inches of topsoil, if they wanted to have a garden, they could have a garden there. And then start working on getting the taxes down. I would like to see this town be a financially stable town and not have to raise, there's no trick to balancing a budget if you're willing to raise the taxes. We need to get the taxes down, and that the development will come, as far as the commercial development. Because, businessmen, they're looking at the bottom line, the dollar.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman, question number 3. What is the role of the mayor to attract economic development to the city?
There again, we're back to the 5-star plan as far as getting the taxes down, and I'd like to get our name. I'd like to get our name on the map. When you see a weather report, you see Naperville, you see Wheaton. I'd like to see Warrenville up there, and I think one way we could do that is get weather stations, so our people report the weather into these news stations, and we get our name on the map so people know we're here. We get our taxes down and that. We get the flooding problem so the engineers aren't worried about building something in Warrenville, if it's going to flood or not. We need to get a handle on that stuff, or people just aren't going to come. We get our sales tax down low, get our property taxes down low, least equal to Naperville's. And that's like, we bought that property up there on 59 there, and it was ridiculously cheap because the people couldn't sell it. They sold it to Warrenville because they couldn't sell it. You're talking property on 59 and Butterfield Road, 59 and Butterfield Road. We got that property for $1.50 a square foot. For about half of it, and that's just 8 years ago. And we got the other property for $1.75 a square foot. That whole 7 1/4 acres we got for $275,000. Why is that? Again, our property taxes are too high. Developers come here and build houses, they sell them, they don't care because they don't pay the taxes. Somebody that's going to build a business here and that, they're worried about the taxes, but that's a permanent drag on them.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson?
The mayor's role is one of a champion and a communicator and a salesman in some ways, to work with the economic development people of the town, the staff, to find those locations that are viable within town to bring developers to. I got a call the other day from a company that just relocated to Cantera with 400 employees from Addison or Streamwood. Now, there's obviously a reason they wanted to come here. The space, the culture, the character, the community that he wanted to bring his people here. So it's happening. But to be the person to call, to reach out, to go to the forums that the professionals have where you hear from a Bellwood, you hear advertised on the radio because of their water, or whoever it is. Come to Bellwood, we need that from Warrenville too, and to be the champion going out to make that happen. Because it doesn't just happen. You can't just say, we'll lower your taxes and the flood of people will come here. It requires a touch and a contact and a person to be talking to those developers. And that's what I would be doing as the mayor.
So before I hesitantly say this is the last question, I'm going to ask, is this the last question? Yes. Okay. Here we go. What can we do to improve our city's events, such as Holidays and the 4th of July, for example? Holidays, sorry.
Who to first?
We're going to go with you, Candidate Johnson.
I don't know. I thought they were fantastic last year. So I'm always impressed when I go to any of the events around town because you get that volunteer spirit, you get the feeling for the park district, you get to see different parts of the community coming together. What would be interesting is if there's some way to, again, move those events around, because they can tend to all be in one spot, which people love who live around that area, but that's just all right down over here. Is there some way to occasionally move one of those over to near Summer Lakes, or occasionally move one to down near Cantera where all the rental properties are, and try to, again, engage more people. But boy, the park district, city staff, whoever does that, fantastic. And when they had the Holly events and the little pop-up shop in the city hall, I want to see that explode and be twice as big as it was last winter downtown. So just, again, to continue to encourage those and to continue to encourage the volunteers who put them together, so think big.
Thank you. Candidate Hoffman.
I personally believe that the 4th of July they do a wonderful job on. Would I like to add to that? Absolutely. And maybe have a carnival for the kids. You know, we used to have a carnival when we were kids here, and somewhere it's just kind of disappeared. I would like to see a carnival along with 4th of July or somewhere close to it. I know the children would look forward to that, you know, and it was just a nice event. I believe one year they had the VFW used to have to organize all that, you know, back years ago before we really had a city government, you know. And as far as the holidays, I think that's a wonderful event for kids and that, you know, and I think they're doing a great job on that.
Well, thank you. If you all have additional questions, I'm sure the candidates will make themselves available to you to answer those questions. But please join me now in thanking the candidates for participation tonight. It is now time for your 1-minute closing statements. And we'll begin with candidate Hoffman. You have 1 minute.
Warrenville is a great town. I love this town. I've been in this town my whole life. It just, I hate to see it ruined. And as far as, you know, we cannot continue to kick the can down the road or we'll become the second Detroit. And mind you, Detroit has the highest property taxes in the United States. My five-star plan addresses this major issue. And you know, there again, as far as attracting development, you know, you don't want to be begging people to come to this town. I personally believe that what we need to do is make everybody so happy living here and take care of the people that are here, take care of the business that are here, and people flock here, you know, because they'll want what we have, and we don't have that now. And that's why we don't get development.
Thank you. Candidate Johnson?
I have been a champion for Warrenville wherever I've gone, whether to work on boards I've served on or when I've corrected numerous TV and print reporters over the years that there is no Wheaton South High School. There is a Wheaton Warrenville South High School. There's a Wheaton Warrenville. I'm ready to take on the role of mayor of Warrenville. It's a job I've thought about since I was a kid when my parents worked on the campaign of our second mayor here in town. I have the time to bring all of my past experiences together to work to make Warrenville an even better place tomorrow than it is today. As a lifelong resident, I have a deep respect for our past, but a vision for the future as well. A future where we continue to enjoy safe and healthy neighborhoods, where our kids are welcomed into great schools, where our taxes remain reasonable and public service levels high, and where our storefronts are filled with thriving businesses. Warrenville residents have elected me to represent us in various roles 5 times in the past, and I will make you proud when I have the opportunity to represent you as your mayor. So thank you very much for coming out tonight.
Thank you. I do want to thank the fire district for their generosity in providing such a welcoming space for our forums this evening. So thank you. Our democracy thrives when all of us are engaged. Attending or watching a candidate forum is an excellent way to be empowered to join discussions on local issues and make your voices heard on Election Day. We hope that each and every one of you will vote and inspire your friends and family to do the same. Information on how and when to vote can be found on the website vote411.org or on the Wheaton League of Women Voters website. Thank you, gentlemen, and best wishes on the campaign trail.
Thank you.